This is Wickett on Wisconsin. My name's Mike Wickett. After 10 years in Milwaukee talking sports, I took a bit of a break, but now I'm back and here to talk about the Packers, the Bucks, the Brewers, and more with you. And now inside the Koss Headphone Studios, this is Wickett on Wisconsin with me, Mike Wickett. Another episode of Wickett on Wisconsin, and I had to go find a guy who is the backbone of a radio station in Milwaukee and carried me through 5 days of broadcasting when I made my return to the city of Milwaukee on the air. No, I'm not talking about Chuck Freeman, but I am talking about his co-host earlier this week from 97.3 The Game in Milwaukee. Armen Saryan is with me. What up, brother? How you doing?
How you doing, Mike? Good to talk to you. I don't know if I deserve those kind of words, but I appreciate it. But it's great. Thanks for having me on this podcast. It's great to talk to a Milwaukee radio legend like yourself, even if you're not in the city anymore.
Well, if I can find a Milwaukee radio legend, I'll have him come sit in front of this microphone. Hey, when I was filling in with Chuck, there was no sports. We still had nothing. Everyone was talking about maybe the bubble is happening and college football, and that's a disaster as we speak. Oh, by the way, I'm sorry. Since it's Milwaukee, might as well crack open a beer. I don't know if you have a beer near you, but
I should probably get one too, shouldn't I?
Probably. Yeah, you probably should have. I mean, that's why you got engaged.
You know what? Do you have 3 seconds? I'll crack it myself.
Go ahead. We'll just hang out, you know. We'll just wait for Armen to go get a beer.
We did. I'm sorry. Yeah, we didn't plan this, but I've got one myself.
Oh, well, hey, how about that? If Miller's watching, then send the endorsement money my way and Armen's way. All right, cheers. All right.
I'd love to get that or even a free beer. I mean, whatever you want to give me, you know.
We're in radio. I'll take a koozie at this point.
If it's free, it's me, Mike.
Oh, come on now, Armen. If it's free, it's for me, and I'll take 3. All right, that's it. That's it right there.
You taught me, my friend. Yes.
What's life been like for you guys now that sports has come back? Because I filled in on Zabin's show on your station, and we kind of had sports. You know, I think it was the week of baseball or the week before baseball or something, but there still was nothing. What's it been like?
Well, it's kind of weird, you know. I mean, you don't go without sports for that long, and it's like a desert. And I don't want to say you get used to it, but you know how we are in radio. We're sort of like it's like a chameleon, like in Darwin. We still learn to adjust to our new skin, and then once your new skin's on, you're like, wait, I have to molt this skin again, to use a little animal reference there, I guess. I don't know where I came up with that, but
fine.
So it's a weird thing because you're used to kind of living without it for so long, and then it all comes in one deluge, you know, like all of a sudden at once we have baseball, we have playoff basketball, you know, in the
hockey, soccer, NASCAR, UFC, golf
all at once. So you know, you're just kind of learning to adjust to that onslaught. It's like, I don't know, it's like if you were starving for 4 months and all of a sudden you went to a Golden Corral or something. You know what I mean?
We'll take that Golden Corral money too.
Yeah, that's right. We'll take it. Yeah, that's right. Speaking of, well, I don't know, are buffets even existing anymore? That's a whole nother topic.
Yeah, there's your topic for Friday morning.
Totally, and that's kind of funny you say that because I think we've adjusted going. You know, we always would do the sports and stuff. Well, we had to really rely on that during those sports. And I think there were aspects of it, well, at least for me, we all found enjoyable that you didn't want to totally abandon. So I think you kind of find this way to do a hybrid type thing where.
Well, you guys at 97.3, I think more than the other 2 sports talk stations. I think you guys did more and stuff. Like my friends at the Fan did mostly sports.
Sure.
You know, ESPN is ESPN, but you guys. You know, you got KB on the afternoon program. I mean, that's and stuff as it gets.
As it gets. And I think it served us well because, you know, you're trying to, you know, swim through that kind of river for a while. And it helped. It was preparing us for that. We didn't realize we'd have to be. It was preparing us for that. But it's also good to get sports back because, I mean, me personally, I love that. You know, I'm a huge sports guy and I love that part of it. So I think it's just finding a way to still keep a balance of both while obviously talking sports because now that we have that opportunity, you know, we're obviously going to take advantage of it. And we have had it, especially with, you know, the Bucks and the Brewers and so much the Bucks who are at least a contender this year in the NBA playoffs.
If the Bucks advance to the second round, will you still hate Dario?
No, I don't know. I will not And I don't hate Dario, but we have this fun rivalry going, I guess. But no, I expect the Bucks to advance. They will, and Dario will probably tell us and remind us how right he was all the way if they keep winning, and I'll be completely happy for him to do that. But I keep telling him and others, I grew up here in this city. I mean, I grew up in the South Side. I'm from Greenfield. I love all my teams so much. I have a lot of civic pride, but it's hard for me to really inject that reality in my brain that the Bucks could actually win a world championship. So I kind of keep that beyond my wildest dreams. You know what I mean? And I'll just keep it on that shelf for now.
Do you feel you probably felt really good in March about that, and then everything shut down?
They were playing great.
Do you feel as good after 12 games in the bubble? And this will probably go up live after they close out Orlando. So let's say they close out Orlando and it's been 13 games in the bubble.
Well, they can and they will. And I'm not sure it would change my answer too much because it's Orlando. We don't know how much we can really learn about this team from beating Orlando.
It's an unmanned Orlando team. That's what's real. Yeah. And I know I want your answer, but it's if they give this effort that they have given against Orlando, against Miami, against Boston, even without Gordon Hayward, or against Toronto, or anybody out west, they might only win a game in the series because they're shooting free throws like garbage. Giannis is really good at that. They turn the ball over. They look lackluster on defense. They haven't played 4 quarters of a complete game yet where they look like the team that won 56 games.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I'm going to try and sift through all that stuff. You're right about that. I mean, no, it's not. It's all good stuff. I'm just going to I don't feel as good about them as I did in March. Now, that's all relative because in March, we felt fantastic about this team. It seemed like they were a champion in waiting. And of course, coronavirus hit, the big layoff. Now, this was a bigger layoff than most regular NBA off seasons were. And I said to myself the whole time, I hope they aren't 94 Expos. I hope this isn't the 94 Expos, and it would just be our luck that we'd have to deal with that. Well, if they're not, I mean, they're going to get a chance now to play and finish the season out and find out how far they can go and win their championship if they earn it. But in some ways, so far, they have gotten bitten by that same bug because even though they're still playing with the same team on paper, this doesn't seem to be the same team. You know, that whole thing about a whole is bigger than a sum of its parts and not bigger than whatever that little magic is of chemistry or that special sauce you find in a team. They haven't had that. Now, I believe it's inside this team still. And I think we've seen glimpses of it during the bubble, but we haven't seen it happen consistently.
They got lucky they're playing Orlando. They got lucky that they drew an under, no MCW, not that I think that they would, Aaron Gordon makes the Orlando Magic that much of a threat. They shouldn't, but they're lucky they're playing the crappiest team in the bubble.
Well, they're lucky. They're lucky, but they earned it, right? I mean, but the Magic are playing harder, I would say, than like, for instance, Philly did, or even Indiana, who doesn't seem like they want to be there. There are a lot of teams that in this bubble haven't really wanted to be there. At least Orlando's played hard. But you're right. They're undermanned. They don't have Gordon, they don't have Mo Bamba, all the guys are missing. So that part's true. But in a way, I think it could work in their favor because if they came out and played their best and rolled the Magic in forward, they might not have faced the same adversity and had to figure the same things out that they are right now because they definitely are. I mean, they looked much better in games 2 and 3. They looked dominant, especially on the defensive end, which was a key for me. They got the job done in Game 4.
Game 4 was hard to watch. I've got it on. I'm feeding my 19 babies I've got around here, but it was, a lot of these playoff games, and I love watching the games in the bubble, and we'll talk about that in a second. A lot of these games, Luka and the Dame and all these guys, I'm into games. That Game 4 between Milwaukee and Orlando, I missed a big chunk in the middle just because it was uninteresting. It just wasn't an appealing. It wasn't a good game to watch.
Yeah, for a neutral observer, probably it wasn't. And obviously, it didn't happen. Chuck and I were on the air live almost concurrently with that whole game, so we were kind of living that life.
Counter programming. What were you guys talking about?
It was crazy. I mean, that's the whole radio thing. That was difficult to deal with, but it was okay. We're on here live when it happens. And I'm a ball of anxiety when any of my teams play. That's just the way it is. Now, heighten that much more by knowing that we're on the air. We have to do a radio show, and the fact that this is the NBA playoffs, and this is a big game. As good as the Bucks looked after taking their punch in the face in Game 1 and 2 and 3, you don't want to mess and play with your food. You want to get this job done. And in Game 4, it was a close game for 3 quarters, and you're risking being tied 2-2 to the 8th seed. That's not a position you want to be in. So this was a big game to me for the Bucks. They got the job done. They pulled away in the 4th quarter. But it was running concurrent to the show. So here we are doing the show. I'm anxious about the Bucks winning and playing well. Chuck is anxious about, he had the Magic covering 13.5.
Of course he did. Of course he did.
Under, which he lost both right at the end. I felt live on the air. I felt bad for him. And I suppose maybe in some ways it was compelling. I felt like, sorry for the listeners. They had to listen to this. But, yeah, it wasn't pretty. But it reminds me of, I'm a Marquette guy. It reminds me of a college basketball season when a team that is supposed to be good, is playing a bye game against a cupcake. And this happens every year. There's always a couple games when they don't look good against that cupcake and everyone gets concerned.
It's like when Marquette plays IUPUI and they're up 1 at halftime.
And I can tell you numerous years when that team has gone on to do great things by March that they've looked like crap against a team that year. So it doesn't mean they're going to be better or worse. It doesn't mean that they're doomed if they don't play well. It doesn't mean if they do play well, it guarantees anything for the next round. So I try and keep that in mind and remind myself that whatever the Bucks want to accomplish is still in front of them. But they have to play better. They have to find the greatness that they had during those winter months. And will it help or hurt that they didn't play as well up to this point? I'm not sure. This overused term, flip the switch. If I hear flip the switch one more time.
I don't know if they're a flip the switch team, though. I
don't think know that any team is a flip the switch team. I really don't know if I believe in that anyway. But I wonder, they're going to be in a dogfight. I mean, assuming they beat Orlando, which I think they will.
Yep.
They will be in a dogfight with the Heat now in a real series. This isn't going to be something they're going to be able to roll the ball out and dominate the Heat. But I still think at their best they can beat them. The one encouraging sign they had in the bubble before the playoffs was that second half against the Heat. They were down 30 or 20 or whatever it was. They came out and
but they were down 30 or 20. Like that's that,
which is a big problem. You can't mess around and do stuff like that. But when they played their best in the second half, they were better than the Heat. So the hope is they can have that energy, that intensity, that mentality, and that execution throughout. But it's going to be a tough series, no doubt. If the Bucks make it to the finals, and of course win it, it won't be because they'll have to work for it and sweat for it. It'll be a tough East. We already know about the Raptors. We already know. I mean, the Celtics are always dangerous as well.
Hayward comes back. That's going to be real scary. It will be. Let me ask
to answer your question, which I didn't do very succinctly. I'm sorry.
The answer is yes. You hate Dario. Okay, let me move on.
They have to play. They've got to play much better. But I believe they can, and it's inside them. And hopefully they're figuring it out. But in terms of this Orlando series, they just got to get the job done. There's no way you're supposed to win by 30 or 40. And even if they do, Bucks fans and Bucks Twitter will have the same concerns they would have had if they didn't. So just get the job done and prepare for Miami.
I put this poll question out after Luka hit the game winner for the Mavericks the other day, and it was, who would you rather have for the next 10 years? Now, when I put it out, got 300-400 votes or whatever, and it was like 64% Giannis over Luka for the next 10 years. So who would you rather have, Luka or Giannis over the next 10 years? And I realize that most of my followers are in Milwaukee, and most of the people who follow me sports-wise are Bucks fans.
Yes.
My buddy Carrington, who hosts the afternoon show in Kansas City, who's got 40,000 followers and a lot of NBA fans, he retweeted it. And I was very happy to see that because that added juice. And it quadrupled the amount of people who actually who voted on the poll question.
Okay.
So when you factor in Kansas City, who has zero NBA interest outside of maybe Oklahoma City and just basketball fans, what do you think the percentage was for Luka? What do you think the percentage was for Giannis after that retweet, which got over 1,200 votes?
Okay, now this has been a question that's been bandied about on the Twitterverse this week a lot. And I know the general, I'll say, national consensus has been Luka. I know that. Now, I'm trying to think of Kansas City, really no basketball.
They had a team. They had the Kansas City
They had the
Monarchs.
Kings,
They had a team.
but that was what was it, 84? I'm just thinking of the affiliation.
Or the Kansas City Kings, excuse me, the Kansas City Kings.
the
Before
Kings.
the Monarchs, I believe, were the Negro League team.
Right, yeah.
Not the same thing.
It's moved in like the 80s, mid-80s, right?
Yep, 85.
I think of some sort of affiliation, like is Kansas City have affinity with Milwaukee's a small market, Giannis, Luka? I'm going to say
Lorenzo Kane.
Sure. All those Royals that were Brewers. I'm going to say Luka won this one, though, and by a good margin.
61% Luka.
Okay. Not
61%.
As much as that, but it flipped, basically.
It basically flipped after the bias of the Milwaukee fans was taken out of it. So, in general, fans would rather have Luka. And it's funny. I can see both sides of it. Like the defense of Giannis might put him over the top for a lot of other people. The playmaking ability with the ball in his hand coming up the court might put you over the top for Luka Doncic.
Yeah, that's right. I think that's exactly where I fall into this. This is a tough debate. I don't think it's clear one way or the other. And I'm as big a Bucks and Giannis fan as they come. But Luka is a special player. There's no doubt about it. I mean, the kid is in his second year. He's an absolutely special player. He has skills all over the court.
Luke, everybody's comparing him to Larry Bird, and I think we do that because he's white.
Yeah, I don't know that comparison, actually. Yeah.
Is it blasphemy to say he's a guy that can score, he can pass, he can rebound, he can run the floor, he's a decent three-point shooter? He's LeBron.
He's got that skill set, sure.
And he's LeBron's size because he's 4 or 5 inches taller than Larry Legend.
Yeah.
So and Larry was the great shooter, the great clutch player, the great trash talker.
Great basketball mind, really. You know?
He's 6'8", 6'9". I know people aren't going to like that, but he's LeBron.
Yeah, he is. I don't know. He's quite as athletic as LeBron, and he isn't quite the brute strength as LeBron.
Not yet, but LeBron didn't look like that in 2003 when he came out of Akron.
No, but when he came out of high school, he could jump out of the gym. I'm not really sure Luka's at that level, but Luka can do. You're right. Luka can do all those things that he can do. The difference I would say is that basketball is still a game where you play on both ends, and because we don't quantify defense as easily as offense, I think casual. I hate to say this term, but casual observers, fans, we tend to think of basketball as an offensive game. I mean, how many points did you have? Things like that, offensive stats. But we know how dominant Giannis can be. Look, 2 hours ago, he was announced for Defensive Player of the Year.
Yep.
Giannis won that. So, as we tape this. So, Giannis is a special defensive player as well as offensive player. The term I've always heard, and I know NBA people talk about this, and it usually comes in from the Harden-Giannis debate, from the Harden fans who hate Giannis because he's taking an MVP, whatever. That's the whole theory, is that Giannis doesn't have, quote-unquote, a bag, right? He doesn't have those basketball skills you think about in the half court. He's just a guy that has unique athleticism, that can run and jump and has long arms. Well, I think Giannis is more than that, but I get the argument. But Luka's a special player, and I think it's tough either way. The reason I say Giannis is because what he can do on the defensive end as well as the offensive end.
Yeah.
I truly believe Giannis's shot is getting better and better. So I think
is it really a Bucks game if Giannis doesn't airball a free throw? Is it truly, are you watching a Bucks game if it doesn't happen?
No, but how much does that matter? This is a highlight-driven culture and a highlight-driven league especially. And Giannis might airball a free throw, but he had the biggest PER in the history of NBA basketball this year. I mean, by some measures, he had the best season of any player ever. Now, that's by some data measures. So you have to take all this with a grain of salt. Yes, it's embarrassing if he misses a free throw. Yes, his career, I think going into the season was 72%, which is not bad, but it got worse this year. Yes, you want him to be better at free throw shooting, but you also want him to be a better three-point shooter, which he has improved. I think you have to take both with a grain of salt. I expect him to win the MVP again. So I'm talking about a two-time MVP, this year Defensive Player of the Year. Only 2 players have won the same award in both years. Jordan and Olajuwon. So he's a special player.
That's pretty amazing to be in the conversation. Jordan's the GOAT, and I think skill-wise, Olajuwon is the most talented center ever.
Sure.
So to be in the category of 2 people I would put on my Mount Rushmore if we got 5, all-time starting 5, to be in that conversation is pretty cool.
Yeah, but now if I'm going to sit here and say I would definitely not take Luka, that's hard too. Besides the fact Luka's younger, the kid is obviously uniquely skilled, has a great future, and maybe he can do things that Giannis can't. You know, he had a game-winning step-back three. I don't know if I ever see Giannis doing that type of thing. That's just the way it is. So.
Yeah, I don't. Look, I know he's getting better at it, but I don't ever want to see Giannis. It hurts me when Giannis shoots threes, and I know he's getting better at it. And it's like I get more mad at Giannis shooting a three than Bledsoe shooting a three, and I hate when Eric Bledsoe shoots a three.
Well, yeah, it depends when it comes, right? Too. That's the other thing. But that's a tough question. Luka's a special player. If you're in that class, look, Milwaukee's blessed to have a player in that class. So that's why I just kind of keep reminding myself. But one really quick thing, Mike. I know I'm talking a lot on this.
That's fine. It's a podcast.
Yeah, good point.
It's fine. I'll just do this.
We get caught up. Perfect. We get caught up in thinking what a player should look like. Now, Giannis is a unique physical specimen. His arms, a lot of his dominance comes from that. We know that. But I remember when Usain Bolt started sprinting, and for a lot of people, it's like he's too tall to be a great sprinter. He doesn't look like a great sprinter. It doesn't matter. He became the greatest sprinter ever. So is that Giannis might not look like what we think of as the most skilled basketball player in the world. He's not going to cross guys over and do crazy. Maybe he's not that step back three. Maybe he's just not that guy. But it doesn't mean he's still not a great player. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but I mean, the guy that has the great crossover, Tim Hardaway, James Harden, whoever, isn't going to Euro step his way and take 3 steps from half court to the basket and dunk over you. Like, everybody has a different skill set. Like Russell Westbrook. I think Russell Westbrook is the most athletic player I've ever seen in my life, not named LeBron James.
Sure.
That guy goes from 0 to 60 and 60 to 70 faster than anybody I've ever seen. For whatever reason, he jumps faster, which is a weird I've never really when he's on that break and he's driving through the key or whatever, he explodes faster than anybody else. And that's why I like watching Westbrook play. But another guy, I don't want to see Russell Westbrook shoot a 3 ever, unless I'm playing against him.
Sure. No, that's exactly right. I think sometimes we get caught up in what we think a guy's skill set is versus how much. If I'm judging a player, I want to know how much is he contributing to winning. And there's no doubt Giannis does that as good as anybody, even if sometimes we don't see it the way we're used to seeing it. Like you talk about Westbrook, athletic, exciting. He can do it all on the court, right? But for some reason, he's one of the most inefficient shooters, and that's not a good thing. So
it's in his head, and he's gotten better at it. But when I remember when it was he and Harden and KD in Oklahoma City, and you're just starting to get used to this new big three. I remember watching that big three, thinking, "Who's the idiot that just keeps throwing the ball away and not setting the offense up and running with everything like that?" That was a frustrating guy to watch. He's better now. And pairing him with Harden is really interesting. Like, it'll be, if he gets back and healthy and Houston can get out of this first round, which is a big if, that's an interesting team to watch, because if it's, let's say it comes back down to Houston and Milwaukee in the final, I mean, over under 150 threes in a game. Everybody's just bombing away.
Oh, totally. Absolutely. And there's always things that go into judging players that people, I think, don't look at, like usage and player efficiency, things people, all the stat nerds, the data geeks, but it's important stuff. So, that Luka Giannis thing is going to be something probably. Hopefully, those are the two faces of the league now. I don't mind the comparison to LeBron at all, though. I think it's a pretty decent one. And
you're pretty right on the fact that he's not the athletic freak that LeBron is, but I just feel like he does everything really well.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's what LeBron does. I want to switch gears real quick. Are people bored with the Brewers, or are people still living and dying with this team?
It's hard to say. I think a lot of sports fans right now don't know what to make. Look, from the start, didn't know what to make of baseball coming back. With basketball, it was, okay, the continuation of the season. We're going to the playoffs. It felt like more of a real thing. But so many baseball fans were bemused, bemoaned, and confused through the whole process of starting this. I know, sorry, his words. I mean,
we still are bemused, bemoaned, and confused by all of this.
And pull my hair out, because it was such a frustration to get these guys in the field, and then the testing and all this stuff. And it's such a short season that's unusual, with 7-inning games and runners on second extra innings. I think there's a lot of fans that still don't know what to make of it. And for Brewers fans, because of all that, plus you have a team of a lot of players that nobody knows. Remember, they had to retool most of this team that is 500 or under. A lot of fans are like, okay, I guess. But the flip side of that is, I think, and the other thing was in the first 2 weeks, everyone was waiting to see if the whole thing would collapse. So I think nobody really got invested yet because there was a bunch of testing issues. Remember the Cardinals, the Marlins. So everyone's like, oh, this won't last. But Brewers fans right now are, I'd say, not apathetic, but they don't know what to make of them because this team might be a 500 team at best, but that might be good enough for a playoffs in this expanded playoff system.
I went really out on a limb when I was filling in on your morning show, and I said they're going to go 30-30, like a real crazy prediction, really, really out there. I said they're just not consistently, they're not good enough to be consistently good.
No doubt about it. We saw that last weekend with the Pirate series.
Oh.
They came back the weekend before, had a huge 3 out of 4 at Wrigley. That was a monster series for them, got them back above water, 10-10, gave everyone some confidence. Okay, first place team, we took 3 out of 4 at Wrigley. Not that I don't know if that even matters. I say at Wrigley.
At Wrigley, like it matters.
Yeah. But then you come back and you get swept by the worst team in baseball. So that took a lot of the wind out of the sails. I know I interrupted you, but I think that's where a lot of fans are, wait and see mode. They won last night against the Reds. Good. Can they string to a few more together to get back to 500 and try and figure out a way to get a playoff spot in this weird, short, unusual playoff expanded season?
I know you guys have Hydrocourt on, and you guys talk a lot of. I mean, do you feel like fans care, or is it just, when's the next Bucks game? When's the first Packers game?
Right. What's
the college football story?
Yeah, I feel like fans care in as much as the games are on, and people in Milwaukee, this, enjoy baseball and want to have it on. But I don't feel they're necessarily connected with this team specifically. I think a lot of that is because a lot of the faces from the last 2 years have changed. And just because they haven't been this has not been an exciting team. They pitched well enough to stay in games, but the hitting's been pretty atrocious. And what did I say this weekend? I said, the Brewers had quite a weekend. They didn't hit, but they made up for it by not pitching. That's basically, and so I don't know. Yeah, there might be some of that. Now, if the Brewers have a hot week, it could change everything and get fans jumping.
But see, that's all this season really is. And I haven't looked at the standings in, honestly, a week because of what happened in Pittsburgh. After that, I just quit. But really, it's a week. It's a good week for Colorado. It's a good week for Cleveland. Hell, right now, it's a good week for Detroit. Can get back into the postseason in this playoff or whatever the hell's going on. So, I mean, even if the Brewers, as you and I are talking about this, they're a couple of games under a good 10-day stretch, a good 8 games. You go 6-2, you go 7-1, you get hot, you're right back in this thing. It's so weird, especially with the expanded playoffs.
It's so unusual. And it is so weird because we're used to baseball being the ultimate sample size sport, the ultimate cross through the 6-month desert, to be able to be consistent. And historically, there were only. You
know what? Right now, I'm supposed to be bored with baseball. This is what I'm not supposed to care about baseball.
Okay. Yeah, and it's a sprint, which is unusual. I guess it's exciting because the games mean more, but you're not used to having to judge a team based on 1 week. I mean, and really, baseball isn't designed to be that way. It's designed to be a sport where you don't know how good a batter is until 150 at bats. Or you don't know how good a team is until they've done it for 4 months. And really, okay, the old thing, after Memorial Day, we can look up at the standings after 2 months. That's the whole season this year. So are we really getting an accurate reading or an accurate indication of who the best teams in baseball really are? Because normally you don't in 2 months. But look, it's basically a crapshoot. It's a spin on the roulette wheel. And at least they made the playoffs the same because it's going to reflect the season. So whoever wins the World Series this year, if it gets all that way, I'm not sure they'll ever be recognized as the same type of champion that we've always had in baseball. And that's just the nature of the beast this year. But the trophy's a trophy, I suppose. But it does feel like a roulette shoot more than anything else.
That's the way sports has been, the way sports is right now. Basketball feels really weird. Baseball is really weird. I know that it's the Packers first, the Packers second, the Packers third, and the Packers fourth in the state of Wisconsin.
Right.
And everybody is kind of waiting on this season. I know there's no fans for the first 2 games at Lambeau Field, and then it's 12,000 or 13,000 or whatever it is. I'm trying to figure out how people are going to be into this season because I watch baseball games with no fans. They do a decent job. I watch the NBA. I think the NBA has done a phenomenal job for me sitting on my couch.
I agree. Yeah.
But I don't know if you can do that for football. 80,000 people in tents is a little different than 20,000 or 40,000. In baseball, you kind of sit most of the time anyway. But are people looking at football as finally real normalcy?
Sure, you'd never replace that entire Lambeau Field full. You would never, ever replace it. But I think the fact that football is still a TV sport for a lot of people, and it's a gambling sport for so many people, that just the existence of NFL football is the most important thing.
I am playing in a guillotine league for the very first time. I've never done that. Our boy Paul Charchian.
I love the guillotine leagues, yeah.
I've never done it before. I want the season to actually happen so I can play in a guillotine league.
I just think, and I know it's maybe because of this market, but NBA, NHL, MLB, but if you lose NFL, I think people really need NFL football. I know it sounds crazy, but I just think that's the one that would really be like, wow. I mean, we saw a little bit that with college football. Americans just love football that much. And frankly, I think they're going to find a way to play. Even without fans, will it be the same? No, it'll be weird, but it'll still be NFL football. So maybe that's the start of it. I don't know.
God, it's going to just be weird, whether it's 2,000 or 10,000 or 15,000 fans, and maybe we get the virus under control and they allow 30,000 people at Lambeau Field. Like it's so strange. It's just really like it. And the weird thing is, like I've done 50 podcasts this summer, and you've done 150 shows or whatever this summer, and I feel like you got to be sick of hearing and saying it's a weird time and we're all in this together, but we're not anywhere near getting out of this really weird time, and we really do have to be all in this together
in these uncertain times.
God.
Yeah, these uncertain times. I made the joke the first few months that every commercial is the same. The soft piano music composers are really making out on this one. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be weird like that for a while, but I don't know. I think for most people, the frustration is they want to see some sort of finish line. They want a signal to say, this is what we're shooting for. And once we do, it's all clear, all normal. It's not going to be that sort of linear return though, probably, right? It's going to be a gradual return. And I think that's where people are having a disconnect. But you're right. It's just been very unusual. There's nothing to compare it to. We don't really know what to expect in the future, but I'm one of those people that thinks if you can try and get something done, a normal system in place in terms of what you normally would do, a season, a game, try and find a way to do it. And I think the NBA is a great example of, and the NHL, of they found a way to do it in the bubble. They didn't give up. No, you can't do a bubble in the NFL, but at least they found a way. They tried to make it work, and so far it's working because something is still better than nothing for most people, and the NFL, I think, especially. Will it work? We'll see. We don't know.
Tell me how confident you are in a Marquette season, because I know you're a Marquette guy.
Yeah, I'm not that confident that it's going to happen.
Really?
Not a full season. Now, I don't know if the NCAA is going to be able to lose 2 years of NCAA tournament revenue. 2 years without the NCAA tournament is quite devastating. So maybe I shouldn't say I don't believe there's going to be a season, but I don't think it'll be a normal season. However, basketball is probably the easiest sport to set up something, right?
Yeah, but you can't bubble a bunch of college kids. What are you going to do? You're going to take everybody in the Big East and put them in Brooklyn, and then just nobody can leave, that part of town? You're going to take the Big Ten and sequester them in Indianapolis?
You can, but maybe you could sort of enclose the basketball team at these institutions easier than you would a football team. There's 15 kids on scholarship, 12. And the support staff, whatever. But in college football, there's like 90 to 100. It's a totally different animal. So no fans playing. I don't want to say I don't think the NCAA is going to lose out on 2 years of NCAA tournament, but I don't know if we'll see it the way we normally do with fans.
When's the next time you're going to go to a Marquette home game?
Well, who knows? Hopefully this year, but it's hard to believe that, right? I mean, even if they allow fans in, am I going to be one of the first ones in? Like, am I going to buy? You know what I mean? That's the other thing. Who's going to be first? And I think people are dying to get back to it.
Would you go right now? If somebody said, hey, Marquette's playing Seton Hall tomorrow. I got 2 tickets, center
Yeah,
court, open, full crowd. Would you go?
full crowd's tough. If I knew I could sit away from people,
Sweet
I would.
maybe bubble around me.
Well, I think I could go to a game if I had my own, if I had 2 seats around me. You know what I mean? How
So
comfortable would you be? I mean, if I had 2 seats, I might feel more comfortable doing it.
socially distancing the people around you.
And you wear a mask. I don't know. It's a tough decision. I'm a hypochondriac by nature, so it's
Gosh.
how much would my tickets be? Would I get them comped?
No, I'm buying them for you.
Oh,
We're sitting center court, 12 rows up, so that way you can see over the bench. But
I will only go if Kuykendall gives me a free meal in the press box.
well, that's not happening. We know Scott's not doing that. My God, that's just not happening.
It's a great question, Mike, because it's hard to know. It's easy.
Okay, let me ask you this. Would you go to a Packers game before a Marquette game?
I think so, because it's outdoor. And maybe that's naive, but just based on what I think we know, I feel safer being outdoor in a bigger environment, right?
Yeah.
I mean, in Lambeau Field, there's 80. I can see myself. It's all optics in a way. It's how we feel about ourselves being safe. But am I really safer there? I don't know, but I feel like I would be. Then an enclosed arena like that's smaller,
All right. Well, let me ask you about this, Armen. Why'd you get engaged?
Well, why not, right? No,
Is she there? Is she in the background listening to this?
No, she's not actually here right now. No, my lovely fiance. I'm getting used to saying that. Laura is not here right now. No, I feel pretty lucky, Mike. I feel pretty lucky. I was single.
I have to tell you, first of all, congratulations. Second of all, the pictures at the Bradley Center demo site.
Yes.
That's one of the most Milwaukee things I've ever seen in my entire life.
Thank you. And I had nothing to do with Bart. So Bart, if you're out there, I don't want you to think I'm doing it to feed your ego, okay? No, just kidding, Bart.
Bart from The Fan?
Yeah, Bart. Bart's old thing about what's your favorite Bradley Center memory?
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Because he got married at Lambeau.
No, I know that. I was joking because I know Bart's running joke about what's your favorite Bradley Center memory.
Oh.
The tweet was I had to make one more memory at the Bradley Center, and no, Bart tweeted me like congrats and was joking. He stole my bit, but it was really funny. I don't remember tweeting something good.
I doubt it. He's angry all the time. I have.
No, but I just thought that I was like, I wonder if Bart thinks I did that for him. No, Laura and I had our first date at the Bradley Center. It was Kobe's last game in Milwaukee, actually.
Oh.
It was kind of crazy that was that night, and
I wonder if I was at that game. Did
maybe
I might have been at that game? It's sitting in the media area.
It was in February, and the Bucks won big. So.
I'll have to. I can't remember.
Yeah. No, I just, to be honest with you, obviously I've never been engaged before, and I was like trying to think of ways to do it, and I get into my own head and I kind of overthink things all the time, and I'm like, I think she'd really appreciate it, even though it seems weird to get engaged in the middle of an empty lot. She got the sentimentality of it. Sentimentality.
Whatever, you're drinking.
And it turned out really well, so I'm happy about that.
Well, good for you, man. I saw it on social media, and I'm like, oh, if only we could have exploited this for 5 days when I was filling in on the game with Armen.
No,
but
you could have sucked some content. You could have soaked me for content.
Because what would have happened is I would have been like, congratulations.
Yes.
And Chuck would have been like, bad move.
And he has kind of joked with me a little bit about that in the past. But yeah, that's been the fun part, is seeing what kind of different advice you get from different people.
Here's the only piece of advice I'll ever give you.
Yes.
Be careful after you have your first kid, because the next two can surprise you. All right.
I joke with Laura. Sorry, I'm swatting a fly away. It's nothing to do with you. It's not like pulling your comments. We've got to be careful about those nonverbal cues. No,
it's true.
I joke with Laura because I was like, what about she, like, people, you talk about kids, like how many kids do you want, and I'm like, well, if you have twins, you can't really control the second two, and then I'm like, oh, that's what happened to Mike, so
Yeah, and then you know what you do is you quit your job and you stay home as a dad. That's
Right.
the game plan for everybody. What
It
does
was,
Laura what does Laura do?
Laura's a pharmacist. So
Oh, smart, good job at proposing, my
yeah, no, yeah,
friend.
yeah. I know. I know. I'm pretty lucky. I know that. I know that.
I when you and I go back a ways, and not like we have a huge rich history, but
Sure.
when did you start at TMJ?
I started working at TMJ um, basically 6 months after I graduated college at '06. So I would say the fall of '07 is when I first started working at AM 620. And it's funny because in some ways it feels like just yesterday I started there, and in some ways it feels like a lifetime ago. Not only because of the time passing and of course me growing and career change, whatever, but how much has changed, Mike, in radio in that time. From '07 to now, I mean, it happened in front of my eyes, so sometimes you don't really see the forest through the trees. Radio has changed so much. Digital media, everything we do has changed so much. This should tell you. I mean, the first thing I did, I produced the evening shift for a while. Brewers games on TMJ evenings, and and then I started doing the Greenhouse. Jonathan Green hosting the afternoon show for what 30, 40 years at TMJ. It was an institution. That was the first show I produced, and then for the first couple of years of my career was producing the Greenhouse. And I was like telling myself, I was pretty young. I'm like, you're seeing like a golden era radio legend, So it's kind of crazy to see all those things happen. But yes, that's when I started at TMJ '07, moved to iHeart in 13, and I've been there ever since.
Goodness, because I got to Milwaukee in 2007 in January, and I know that we met and ran into each other at Bucks
Sure.
games or Brewers games and whatnot. And you're right, like radio has just absolutely, I mean, it's consolidated like a lot of other businesses, and there's a lot of people who are wearing different hats, but it's also opened other things up, like for what I'm doing now. Like, I don't work at a radio station, but I like to think that I still have some clout and the ability to talk to people in the state of Wisconsin through a
Absolutely.
podcast. 15 years ago or 13 years ago, podcasting wasn't even a thing. I mean, it should have been, and we'd all be Joe Rogan, but we're not.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, it is wild how much has changed, but I guess what's the term? The days are long, but the years are short.
That's what they tell me about my kids.
Yeah. Yeah. Probably you have a firsthand knowledge of that. It happens right in front of you. But it's weird because I've always had a weird thing with time and space and nostalgia. Like, I'm a very nostalgic person, so I have very specific, detailed memories about things in the past. So sometimes it feels like they didn't happen that long ago. But like the first 6 years of my radio career and the next 6 years don't feel like the same period of time because I was at TMJ for 6 years. That felt like a much longer period of time. I felt like I learned and developed and changed in so many ways as a person, as a professional. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then like I look up and I'm like, well, I've really been at iHeart the same amount of time, but it feels like it's gone so much quicker, and it's really a weird dynamic. So it's a really meta thing, but it's just a weird thing. I always reflect on stuff like that. Like,
What do you want to, Armen, what do you want to be when you grow up?
Oh gosh, what a question. I think one day I'd like to be a real radio broadcaster. I don't know. Long-term goal setting is weird, especially when you're at the age you're at now. I'm like, well, I wonder what I thought I'd be doing in 13 years.
Yeah.
I mean, from when I started radio 13 years ago, I guess I thought I was hoping I'd be doing this. I mean, sports broadcasting is what I've always wanted to do. Now, we all grew up wanting to be Bob Uecker, of course, or just play-by-play, but it was never really the thing. I don't know. It's weird in radio, and you've worked in it and you've worked out of it, Mike, where you know that, like, in the back of my mind, in this business, you always know that eventually probably you'll have to get out of it and do something else. It's just the mindset you're in. If you're, in my opinion, if you're smart and real with yourself, because radio is a unique, changing, and tough animal. You could be the best broadcaster in the world and not have a job. That's just the way it is. So I always just wanted to get to the next step, and that's kind of where I let it take that. Now, like, once upon a time, I was just a producer. I could never have imagined being on air every day, right? And now I can. And then once upon a time, when that happened, I could never imagine being on air as much as I am. But doing it in sports radio is what I always wanted to do. So what I want to do when I grow up, I don't know. Maybe I'll find out one day.
It's fine. You're marrying a pharmacist. You're golden. You're good. It's okay. Don't worry about that.
To be honest with you, this is what I've wanted to do.
I get it. I
You
mean,
know, it's kind of like,
I wanted to be on the radio since the 7th grade,
that's
and
right.
I did it in high school, and I did it in my 1 year of broadcast school, a trade school, and then from Ann Arbor to Milwaukee to Kansas City, whatever the hell I'm doing right now. I understand what you're talking about.
Yeah. You know how it is in radio. Sometimes we wonder, are we the crazy ones to stick with it and to do it? Or are we the lucky ones, or are we the toughest ones? It's hard to really discern all that sometimes, but I, I'm pretty thankful that the next step has always worked out. You know, it sometimes seemed like when it was about to end or there's nowhere to go, another door opened up.
Sure.
So not many people are lucky enough to have that. Not many people are lucky enough to have a job in radio. So in some ways, you just have to be thankful for that.
Well, if you want to say something to your boss, Tim Scott, I'm sure he subscribes to this podcast all the time. So feel free to just rant about how you should have the show and they should fire Drew Olson or they should get rid of Dario Melendez or Steve Zabin for Armen.
I would never ever say any of that. But I think I do a good job. I do the best I can. I think sometimes people in radio get caught up trying to be something they're not. What do I know? You know, I'm no genius, but so what I just try and do is be myself as much as I can.
I think
in some ways that served me well, you know.
I think that I think radio guys, especially sports radio guys, they to me they get caught up in trying to be the smartest guy in the room. Like I had a 19-year career. It's on pause. I had a 19-year career, and never once did I think I was smarter than anybody who was listening, because Lord knows I'm not. I'm a dummy who got a good break. I met the right people at the right time. And I had a pretty good run in radio. Like that's to me is the key to it, is being relatable and never trying to come across smarter than your co-host, your producer, and especially the guy sitting in his car hating his 9 to 5 driving to and from work.
Oh, I totally agree, Mike. But you have to give yourself a little credit. You're a very smart guy. You're one of the greats in Milwaukee. That Milwaukee. You said on pause. It's going to continue. So I'm going to give you a little credit, even if you don't want to give it to yourself.
Well, thank you.
Deserve that. But you're right. I think, and it's true. We have to always be aware. At least I tell myself this. There's a guy listening to you that thinks he can do the same thing but chose not to, right? Every guy in their car that's listening to you because they want to, because they like your format, they like sports radio, in their head believes that they can do the same thing, and they're smarter than you. Look, I thought the same thing before I worked in sports radio. I mean, I love sports radio, always have. I love sports. And I always believed I'm as smart as these guys, or I know as much, and I can discuss it as well, or I can be as funny. So don't lose fact of the sight that, you know, these are the guys sitting at the bar next to you. You know, you're not on some pedestal higher. I try and maintain.
Did you ever listen to our sound off line that we had at the Fan that we would do, and it was with callers and things like that? Then we had a sound off competition. We completely ripped off Jim Rome and the Smack Off.
Right.
And we had a guy win, and I can't think of the guy's name, and I just loved him, and I thought he was great. And he wound up winning, and your prize was you got to come in for a 2-hour show on a Saturday. And Josh Vernier, one of my best friends, he is now the Royals insider down in Kansas City. And he was hosting the Saturday show for the guy. And I wish I could remember the guy's name, and I feel bad that I can't. But he won the sound off challenge. And so he got 2 hours on the air. And he came in, and he had his script, and he had his notes. And after 10 minutes of running through it, he had nothing. He was out, and Vern had to carry the next hour 45.
Sure, I think that's where we have to give ourselves a little credit sometimes, because to an outsider, it looks easy. It always does, but it's really not, and it's much harder than anyone realizes. You don't just walk in and walk out and do a show. So I think sometimes those things are good when they happen, because at least gives you a little bit of like, oh, you know what, these guys are better than we think. They work harder than we think. I tell anybody, if you think you can do it, and like, I don't even know if I can do it, right? I'd say that I don't know how good I am, but if you think you can host a show, try talking into a wall for 2 hours a day. That's at its core, that's what you have to do. And I know a lot of people can bring it for the first segment, the second segment, but you have to do it, and every day you have
It's
to bring
the third day and the fourth day and the fifth day, and when you do mornings, it's that first week of doing mornings. It's fine. It's week 7 and week 8 of waking up at 3:30 and 4 o'clock in the morning, and like you said, like right now, you can't see what I'm looking at. I'm looking at my laptop, which is built into a studio in my closet.
Sure.
All right, but this is where I did Zabin's show from. Was sitting right here with this microphone and this laptop and this closet that I have built my little studio into. It's not what we do is not hard labor. But what we do is not easy.
No, I think that's one of the best ways to put it, because while we're not pulling roof, you do have a lot of pressure on you because you are in a fishbowl that most people aren't in all the time. It's one thing to mess up by yourself. It's one thing to mess up in front of all these people. So there is that added pressure. And like for me, I do I do 2 shows a day. I don't host both shows, but I have a fairly important role in both shows. So I have to always be ready to provide on air and to do the work I have to do producing, which is its own animal. And after 5-6 hours of it, you are going to be mentally exhausted. So there's no physical exhaustion that we might see from a hard labor job like you just mentioned, but you get mentally exhausted doing it because you put pressure on yourself to perform for that long. It's sort of like being a pilot and flying a plane. Once that plane takes off, there's no landing it until you're not coming down until you're done. You have to land it. You have to take the people on that ride for 3 hours and land them safely.
Who's the biggest diva you work with? Butch, Kuhn, Dario, or Ted Davis?
Kuhn is not a diva. I gotta say Brian Butch. I mean, he's always complaining about something. I think he had an infected finger last week. No, I love these guys. No, but Dario's got to be the biggest one, though. Come on. When it comes to divas, I mean, Dario is the pickiest eater. He's like the pickiest everything. I love Dario. I love messing with him. I love when we mess with each other. But I'll give that title to Dario. Ted Davis is the opposite of diva. Ted Davis you could put Ted Davis in a phone booth in the middle of the desert and he'll be ready to call the Bucks game. You know what I mean? That guy is old school. That guy's old school. Ted Davis is like, you joke like, this guy's your father's broadcaster. Ted Davis can do it, man. He's ready to go. You put him in any situation. And that's like, he lives it. Like, he's on the road. He's saving his meal money. He's eating on the team plane, and he's gonna do the game, and he's gonna be ready to. That's how Ted Davis is, old school. So I'm going to give Dario the title of biggest diva. I hope you're listening, Dario, more than this.
Well, this interview is in the bank and collecting interest. Hey, I appreciate you coming on so much, Armen. Again, congratulations on the engagement.
Thank you, bud.
Continued success at the game. I thank you for joining me. We'll have to do this again down the road.
I would love to. Thanks for having me, Mike. It's a lot of fun talking to you, and I mean it when I say it. You're one of the best. Everyone in Milwaukee knows how good you are at what you do at sports radio. I know you'll be doing it again eventually. But the thing is, Mike, I didn't get a chance to experience it firsthand until I worked with you for a week. And
we dragged you through that week of hell.
It was a lot of fun, but I'm very impressed with you. It goes without saying. You do a really good job, and you're a great professional. So you might not want to give yourself the credit, but I will. And I appreciate you having me on. It was a lot of fun.
We'll do it again soon, my friend. Take care.
Thank you, bud.
Thanks for listening to Wickett on Wisconsin. If you have any feedback or you want to reach out to the show, you can find me on Facebook, Mike Wickett Podcasts, or you can email MikeWickettPodcasts@gmail.com. And you can find me on Instagram and Twitter @MikeWickett. Thanks to Silverman Sound Studios for providing the music for today's show. And you can find us anywhere you find your podcasts, including Apple, Spotify, and Google Podcasts. Until next week, thanks for listening to Wickett on Wisconsin.